In May 2025, Wendy McMahon, the battle-scarred CEO of CBS News, slammed the door on her way out, igniting a media firestorm. Her resignation wasn't just a corporate shuffle, it was the explosive peak of a savage war with Donald Trump, who smashed CBS with a $20 billion lawsuit, accusing the network of rigging the 2024 election by doctoring a Kamala Harris interview. This is a gritty, high-octane tale of power, betrayal, and a newsroom teetering on collapse. The fuse was lit in October 2024, weeks before the presidential election. CBS's 60 Minutes, the gold standard of journalism, aired an interview with Vice President Kamala Harris, led by veteran correspondent Bill Whitaker. It was supposed to be a standard pre-election hit, but it became a grenade. Trump, who'd backed out of his own 60-minute slot, screamed foul, claiming CBS had sliced and diced Harris's answers to make her look sharper and more electable. The proof? Two versions of her response to a question on the Israel-Gaza conflict, a long, meandering clip aired on Face the Nation, and a tight, polished one on 60 Minutes. Trump's camp called it a blatant scam to prop up Harris's campaign. In December 2024, he filed a $10 billion lawsuit, which he doubled to $20 billion by early 2025, branding it election interference and demanding the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, yank CBS's broadcasting license. CBS hit back hard, denying any manipulation and insisting the edits were standard practice. Wendy McMahon, who'd been running CBS News since 2023, stood shoulder to shoulder with 60 Minutes executive producer Bill Owens, swearing they'd never cave to what she called a political hit job. But the ground was shifting under their feet. Paramount Global, CBS's parent company, was neck-deep in negotiations for an $8 billion merger with Skydance Media, a deal that needed a green light from Trump's administration. Sherry Redstone, Paramount's controlling shareholder, saw the lawsuit as a massive roadblock and started pushing hard for a settlement to smooth the path for the merger. This put her on a collision course with McMahon, who viewed any deal with Trump as a betrayal of everything CBS News stood for. Redstone's priority was clear: secure the merger, even if it meant throwing journalism under the bus. Inside the CBS newsroom, the atmosphere was toxic. Staffers whispered about a purge, with one veteran reporter telling CNN, "It feels like we're being hunted." Morale was in the gutter as corporate pressure squeezed tighter. The first major crack came in April 2025, when Bill Owens bolted as 60 Minutes executive producer. In a scathing memo to staff, he cited unprecedented corporate oversight, revealing that Paramount's board had started demanding advanced scripts and segment details for 60 Minutes, a direct assault on the show's storied independence. McMahon publicly hailed Owens as a pillar of integrity, but behind closed doors, she was fighting a losing battle against Redstone's growing influence. Owens's exit sent shockwaves through the industry. 60 Minutes, long a beacon of investigative journalism, was now a political punching bag. At the end of the first broadcast after his resignation, correspondent Scott Pelley delivered a pointed on-air tribute to Owens, a subtle but unmistakable jab at Paramount's meddling. The newsroom rallied behind McMahon, seeing her as their last line of defense against a corporate takeover. By May 2025, the situation was a powder keg. On Saturday, May 17, Paramount co-CEO George Cheeks cornered McMahon in a tense meeting and demanded her resignation. Sources later told CNBC that the move was driven by months of friction with Redstone, not just over the Trump lawsuit but also over CBS's coverage of polarizing issues like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. McMahon, who'd poured her energy into expanding local news and boosting CBS's digital presence, saw settling with Trump as a gutless surrender of journalistic principles. But Redstone was done with her defiance. On Monday, May 19, McMahon dropped a bombshell memo to staff, announcing her exit. "The company and I no longer share the same vision for CBS News," she wrote, her words dripping with unspoken contempt for Paramount's priorities. She called the past few months turbulent, but stopped short of naming Trump or Redstone directly. The newsroom was gutted. Staffers told The Independent they were reeling, with many expressing raw distrust in the new leadership. Cheeks quickly named CBS News President Tom Cebrowski and CBS Station's President Jennifer Mitchell as interim leaders, both reporting directly to him, a clear signal that Paramount was tightening its grip on the news division. The timing of McMahon's exit was no accident. It came just one day after 60 Minutes wrapped its season finale, fueling speculation that Paramount was clearing the deck for a settlement with Trump. The lawsuit had already entered mediation, and Redstone's desperation to lock in the Skydance merger pointed to a deal being close. Insiders told the Wall Street Journal that Paramount was prepared to offer a substantial payout to make the lawsuit vanish, though CBS stuck to its public stance that the Harris interview edits were aboveboard. The optics were brutal. McMahon's resignation looked like a sacrificial offering to appease Trump and save the merger. The fallout was a Category 5 hurricane. Trump supporters on X went wild, with users like @TruthWarriorUSA posting, "CBS got caught red-handed faking the news. Good riddance." The rhetoric fed into a broader narrative of media distrust, with Trump's base seeing the resignation as proof of their long-held suspicions about liberal bias. Meanwhile, journalists and press-off-guard press advocates were sounding the alarm. The Los Angeles Times called McMahon's exit a dark day for journalism, warning that settling with Trump could open the floodgates for more lawsuits against media outlets. The FCC's ongoing investigation into the Harris interview, spurred by a conservative group's complaint, kept the pressure on, though CBS held firm, insisting its editing practices were standard. For the CBS newsroom, losing both McMahon and Owens was a double gut punch. Already battered by sagging ratings and internal strife, staff faced a future clouded with uncertainty. McMahon's tenure had been a mixed bag. Critics pointed to declining viewership numbers, while supporters credited her with dragging CBS into the digital age. But her departure felt like a white flag, a sign that corporate and political forces had won. This wasn't just about CBS. Trump's lawsuit was one piece of a larger campaign to kneecap media credibility. In the same week as McMahon's resignation, Trump took to Truth Social, questioning whether Harris's celebrity endorsements from stars like Bruce Springsteen and Beyoncé were paid, framing them as illegal campaign contributions. The rhetoric was pure Trump, tapping into a deep well of public distrust and painting the media as a corrupt elite. Paramount's predicament laid bare the fragility of media conglomerates in a consolidated industry. The Skydance merger, a lifeline for Paramount's financial woes, forced Redstone to weigh journalistic integrity against cold, hard cash. McMahon's exit left CBS bloodied, its newsroom staring down a future where corporate interests might choke out the truth. The scandal sent ripples far beyond CBS. It raised brutal questions about journalism's role in a polarized world. Could newsrooms withstand political heat? Would media giants always pick profit over principle? McMahon's resignation wasn't just a headline, it was a flare in the night, signaling a fight for the soul of a free press. As CBS picked up the pieces, the industry watched, knowing the stakes were higher than one network's fate. The battle lines were drawn, and the war for truth was far from over. The tremors of McMahon's departure didn't stop at the newsroom door. Across the media landscape, executives and journalists grappled with the same existential dread: how do you report the news when every story could spark a lawsuit or a political firestorm? At CBS, the interim leadership of Cebrowski and Mitchell faced a Herculean task. They had to rebuild trust with a demoralized staff while navigating Paramount's tightening leash. Early signs weren't promising. Reports surfaced of heated internal meetings where veteran producers clashed with corporate overseers over editorial control. One anonymous staffer told Variety, "It's not about journalism anymore. It's about keeping the board happy." Trump, meanwhile, kept the pressure on. His legal team pushed forward with the lawsuit, even as mediation talks hinted at a possible settlement. The $20 billion figure was widely seen as a negotiating tactic, but the threat alone was enough to rattle Paramount. Legal analysts gave Trump's case slim odds of success. First Amendment protections are robust, and courts have historically been loath to wade into editorial decisions, but the damage was already done. The lawsuit had turned CBS into a cautionary tale, a warning to other networks about the risks of crossing a vindictive political machine. Public reaction was as polarized as the country itself. On X, Trump supporters framed McMahon's exit as a victory against a biased media. Posts like, "CBS tried to steal the election, and now they're paying," from @ProudPatriot44 racked up thousands of likes. But others saw a darker picture. Media scholars and advocacy groups, like the Committee to Protect Journalists, issued statements urging networks to stand firm. Capitulating to political pressure undermines democracy itself, one CPJ report warned. The debate spilled into academic circles, with journalism schools hosting panels on the Trump effect and how to protect reporting in an era of weaponized lawsuits. For Paramount, the Skydance merger remained the elephant in the room. By late May, reports suggested the deal was inching closer to approval, but at a cost. Sources told Bloomberg that Paramount had agreed to significant concessions to appease regulators, though details were scarce. Whether those concessions included a payout to Trump remained a closely guarded secret. Redstone, once hailed as a media titan, faced growing criticism for her handling of the crisis. Industry insiders speculated she might step back from day-to-day oversight, leaving Paramount's future in the hands of a new generation of executives less tied to the company's legacy. Back at CBS, the newsroom tried to regroup. 60 Minutes kicked off its new season in September 2025 under a cloud of scrutiny. The first episode, a deep dive into election integrity, was seen as a defiant statement, but viewership was down from previous years. Some blamed the scandal's lingering stink, others pointed to broader trends in cord-cutting and streaming wars. Either way, the show's new executive producer, a low-profile veteran named Sarah Klein, faced pressure to restore its reputation without rocking the corporate boat. Early reviews were mixed, while some praised the season's investigative grit, others called it safe compared to the Owens era. McMahon, for her part, didn't fade quietly. By June 2025, she'd surfaced as a consultant for a startup news platform focused on unfiltered reporting. She avoided direct comment on CBS but dropped hints in interviews about standing up to power being her guiding star. Her next move was anyone's guess, but industry watchers pegged her as a potential player in the growing indie media space, where outlets like Substack and Patreon-funded newsletters were carving out niches free from corporate strings. The CBS scandal wasn't just a blip, it was a turning point. It forced the industry to confront uncomfortable truths about its vulnerabilities. Newsrooms, once seen as untouchable, were now battlegrounds where political, corporate, and public pressures collided. For journalists, the message was clear: adapt or perish. Some doubled down on investigative work, hoping to reclaim public trust. Others leaned into opinion-driven content, chasing clicks over depth. The path forward was murky, but one thing was certain: the fight for a free, fearless press was just getting started. As the dust settled, the CBS saga became a case study in power dynamics. Trump's lawsuit, Redstone's deal-making, McMahon's stand, they were all pieces of a larger puzzle. The media wasn't just reporting the news, it was the news, caught in a tug-of-war between truth and influence. For CBS, the road to recovery would be long and brutal. For journalism, the stakes were even higher. The scandal had laid bare a stark reality: in a world where power calls the shots, the truth is always on trial. The CBS scandal didn't end with Wendy McMahon's resignation, it was just the opening act in a brutal, ongoing drama that kept the media world on edge. As summer 2025 rolled in, the network was a shadow of its former self, grappling with internal chaos, external attacks, and a public that no longer knew what to believe. The $20 billion Trump lawsuit, Paramount's Skydance merger, and the gutting of CBS News' independence set the stage for a fight that would redefine the future of journalism. In the weeks after McMahon's May 19 exit, CBS News became a pressure cooker. The interim leadership of Tom Sabrowski and Jennifer Mitchell, now answering directly to Paramount co-CEO George Cheeks, struggled to steady the ship. Staffers, already reeling from McMahon's departure, faced a new reality: editorial decisions were increasingly vetted by corporate overseers. One veteran producer told the New York Times, "We're not journalists anymore, we're content managers for a board that's terrified of another lawsuit." The newsroom buzzed with rumors of a looming settlement with Trump, with insiders claiming Paramount was ready to pay millions to make the case disappear. By June, mediation talks had intensified, and sources told Reuters that a deal was imminent, though CBS stuck to its line that the Harris interview edits were legit. Trump, sensing blood in the water, kept the heat on. His Truth Social posts grew more incendiary, calling CBS the enemy of the people and urging his supporters to boycott the network. On X, his base amplified the message, with hashtags like #CBS caught trending for days. One user, @MAGAForever2024, posted, "They tried to steal the election with fake edits, and now they're running scared." The rhetoric fueled a broader distrust in media, with polls showing CBS's public trust rating plummeting to historic lows. Yet Trump's attacks weren't limited to CBS. He expanded his war on the press, filing complaints against NBC and CNN over their 2024 election coverage, though those cases gained less traction. For Paramount, the Skydance merger remained the ultimate prize. By July 2025, the deal was inching toward approval, but the Trump lawsuit cast a long shadow. Reports surfaced that Paramount had agreed to regulatory concessions to appease the administration, including promises to limit politically sensitive coverage on CBS News. The details were murky, but the implications were clear: the network's editorial freedom was on the chopping block. Shari Redstone, once a media titan, faced mounting criticism for her handling of the crisis. Industry insiders speculated she might step back from Paramount's day-to-day operations, with some even predicting a full exit if the merger cleared. Her legacy, tied to the CBS News brand, was taking a beating. Inside the newsroom, the post-McMahon era was a slow bleed. 60 Minutes, under new executive producer Sarah Klein, kicked off its September 2025 season with a defiant episode on election integrity, but the numbers told a grim story. Viewership was down 15% from the previous year, a mix of scandal fallout and broader shifts to streaming platforms. Critics called the season cautious, noting a pivot away from hard-hitting political exposés toward safer topics like corporate malfeasance and climate change. Klein, a low-key veteran, faced an impossible task: restore the show's reputation while dodging corporate landmines. One CBS insider told Variety, "Sarah's playing defense, not offense. The board's watching every move." McMahon, meanwhile, wasn't content to fade away. By August, she'd joined a startup news platform called Truth Vibe, billed as a no-filter outlet for investigative reporting. In a rare interview with The Guardian, she hinted at her CBS battles, saying, "Journalism dies when you let power call the shots." She avoided naming Redstone or Trump but made it clear she was done with corporate media. Truth Vibe, funded by a mix of tech investors and crowd-funded pledges, aimed to bypass traditional gatekeepers, and McMahon's involvement gave it instant credibility. Speculation swirled that she might launch a rival to 60 Minutes, though she kept her plans vague. The Trump lawsuit, still unresolved by fall 2025, became a symbol of a deeper crisis. Legal experts doubted it would hold up in court. First Amendment protections are ironclad, but the damage was done. The case had chilled CBS's reporting, with producers admitting they were self-censoring to avoid further legal heat. The FCC's probe into the Harris interview dragged on, with no clear resolution. Meanwhile, Trump's broader attacks on the media intensified. In September, he proposed the Media Accountability Act that would make it easier to sue outlets for defamation, a move decried by press advocates as a direct threat to free speech. The CBS saga also sparked a reckoning across the industry. Newsrooms from The Washington Post to MSNBC tightened their editing protocols, fearing similar lawsuits. Journalism schools hosted symposiums on surviving the Trump era, with professors warning students about the risks of working in a politicized landscape. Independent media, from Substack to YouTube-based outlets, saw a surge in popularity as audiences